because at the end of the day, America is going to want a president who is a decent human being, who doesn't shit on other people, who has some interest in the American people, some interest in something beyond himself. I think at the end of the day, people are going to reject this bigoted, divisive figure.
I'm just giving you the answer to the question you're asking all night long. Why do they vote for Donald Trump? It's not always because they like him. No, it's because stuff like that is kookier to them.
Bill Maher didn't hold back when responding to Adam Schiff. And it wasn't just a casual remark. The moment quickly turned intense, grabbing everyone's attention. Maher came out strong, delivering a sharp critique that had the entire room reacting. It all started when Schiff, speaking confidently, launched into another round of criticism aimed at Donald Trump. He described Trump as a self-centered figure who only looks out for his own interests, something he said before. But this time, Schiff went even further. He insisted that Trump was clearly guilty of all the charges and controversies surrounding him, and firmly stated that Trump should never be allowed back in the White House.
I think it's true justice. The only thing he cares about is himself and money. And going after the money is a way to bring about some real justice.
Then came the real tension, the kind that could have ended. A serious political debate right there. Schiff raised the stakes, warning that if Trump ever came back into office, it could mean the end of democracy as we know it. His message was clear. Be afraid of Trump. Be afraid of the future. Just don't. Question the narrative. While Schiff painted a grim picture, Bill Maher sat quietly, arms crossed, clearly unimpressed. And when he finally responded, it hit hard. You could almost see Schiff freeze up. Here's the thing, Schiff tends to repeat the same message. Heavy warnings without offering solid proof. It's more about stirring emotion than offering real evidence or solutions. And just when it seemed like he was done, he made a comment so over the top, it's likely to follow him for a while. Maher didn't let it slide. He picked it apart with sharp humor and confidence. If Schiff thought he was in friendly territory, he found out the hard way that Maher wasn't there to nod along.
I don't share your pessimism about this or your pessimism about the general election. The reason why Joe Biden is going to beat Donald Trump is because at the end of the day, America is going to want a president who is a decent human being, who doesn't shit on other people, who has some interest in the American people, some interest in something beyond himself. I think at the end of the day, people are going to reject this bigoted, divisive figure.
Schiff kept going after Trump, almost like he was trying to win a debate with insults alone. But none of it was landing. He threw out every criticism he could think of, clearly hoping one would stick. But then came the moment that might be keeping him up at night. Schiff, full of confidence, predicted that Joe Biden would have no problem winning the next election. Fast. Forward to today. And in a surprising turn, Donald Trump is back in the White House. That confident prediction didn't age well. What once sounded like a bold statement now feels more like an embarrassing misstep, especially with the cameras rolling. While Schiff kept talking, the tension in the room was clear. Bill Maher looked visibly annoyed, barely holding back his reaction. But it was Stephen A. Smith who stepped in first. And he didn't sugarcoat anything. Before Maher could even respond, Stephen A. spoke up with sharp criticism. He called out Schiff and his political allies for their long, aggressive push to bring Trump down, from constant media attacks to repeated investigations. And in the end, as Stephen pointed out, despite all of it, they still didn't succeed.
And I'm just getting tired of seeing so much stuff targeted in his direction, but somehow, some way he still survives. I mean, we're talking about a situation where he's still going to be the GOP nominee. He's still going to be running for president. You're President Biden. That's the individual that you're going to have to beat. 4 indictments, 91 counts. They ain't even bringing up the bankruptcies, ain't even bringing up this particular issue with this civil case. And somehow, some way, he puts cats to shame because he clearly has more than 9 lives. I mean, come on.
This wasn't a debate. It was a wake-up call. And Stephen A. Smith didn't pull any punches. He went straight at Schiff and his political allies, calling out years of exaggerated messaging and partisan drama. It was the kind of moment where you could tell Schiff might have wished the cameras were off. For years, they've dragged out old controversies, made extreme comparisons, and blamed Trump for almost every national issue. But despite it all, Trump is still standing. Actually, he's gaining ground. He survived scandals, flipped criticism into strength, and turned every attack into momentum. Love him or hate him, one thing's undeniable. Trump has become the political wildcard no one can control. After sitting through Schiff's long anti-Trump speech, Bill Maher hit his limit. No more politeness, no sugarcoating, just a raw, honest takedown. Maher said what many Americans feel but rarely hear on TV, that Democrats have lost touch. Instead of real solutions, they're offering lectures and outrage. And that, he argued, is exactly why Trump keeps winning support.
Atlantic put out an article last year, and it was called Separating Sports by Sex Doesn't Make Sense.
Right.
And talked about how we separate sports like the WNBA and the just because it's just socialization. This is insane.
I agree.
Okay. That's why people vote for Trump. Mm-hmm. Because there's stuff like that on the left that people just go, I know Trump's horrible, but separating by sports by sex makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. And if you think it doesn't, you can't leave the country.
While Democrats are busy lecturing, Trump is out there speaking directly to everyday Americans, loud and clear. And that, Bill Maher said, is why so many voters keep backing him. Maher didn't sugarcoat anything. He laid it out plain and simple. The left isn't losing because of Trump's false claims. They're losing because they've stopped listening. Every time they dismiss the concerns of regular people, they help build the very support they're trying to fight against. One moment Maher pointed to was especially striking: the Democratic push to eliminate biological distinctions in sports. They've strongly supported allowing men and women to compete directly against each other, without hesitation. But for a lot of Americans, that wasn't just a confusing policy, it felt like it went against basic common sense. Instead of opening a conversation or hearing people out, Democratic leaders doubled down. They labeled all criticism as hate and brushed off genuine concerns. Maher didn't hold back. He called it what it is: ideological overreach. He said it doesn't inspire or unite. It pushes people away, faster than a bad ad campaign. Maher summed it up clearly. When people feel like their only options are extreme ideas, or someone who at least speaks plainly and lives in the real world, they'll pick reality every time. And right now, for many, that choice is Trump. But then came the twist. Adam Schiff said something that raised eyebrows across the room, and it sure sounded like he just threw President Biden under the bus.
I take the opposite view. I don't think he should have given the pardons at all.
Really?
No, I don't think he should have, and I was vocal about that at the time.
Can you refuse a pardon?
That's less clear because in the case of the January 6th committee, he pardoned essentially the whole committee.
Trying to step away. From the controversy surrounding January 6th, Adam Schiff, who was deeply involved in the committee investigating it, made a comment that raised a few eyebrows. It came across like he was quietly putting some distance between himself and President Biden's leadership. Schiff, along with others on that panel, walked away with full political protection, even as they spent months assigning blame and demanding accountability from others. The timing felt off. The message? Schiff seems to be shifting gears. And it wouldn't be surprising if President Biden ends up taking the heat next. But here's where it really gets confusing. If the January 6th committee was as confident in their investigation as they claimed, if the evidence was so solid, then why did President Biden feel the need to issue pardons ahead of time? That one move raised more questions than it answered.
So the FBI came in and arrested the judge. No, I haven't heard that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I've ever read arrested a judge. So is this significant?
Well, I think
I'm not going to comment on something I don't know more about than what you've just told me.
You read about it too?
Yeah, I mean, I read about it, but I don't know.
So you don't trust anything either, and you work for the New York Times.
Well,
now, Schiff's out here acting like the pardon wasn't a big deal, brushing it off as if Biden simply overreacted with a backup plan. He never directly blames the president, but the way he skirts around the topic, it feels like he's hinting that Biden may have acted out of fear. And just like that, Schiff appears to be distancing himself from the very person who gave him cover when things got politically risky. It's the classic Washington move. Accept the safety when it's offered, then pretend you never needed it. But people noticed. And let's be honest, the White House probably isn't thrilled with Schiff's sudden memory lapse. Schiff might think he's being subtle, but the cracks are showing. And Bill Maher didn't miss a beat. He jumped in immediately. Not just calling out Schiff, but also slamming the media for what he sees as biased coverage. Maher said what many Americans feel. The press has stopped reporting and started picking sides. Even Bret Stephens, a respected columnist at the New York Times, spoke up. He publicly admitted he's starting to question whether he can trust his own paper's reporting. That's a serious statement, and it shows just how much trust in the media has eroded.
Catholic schools are popular now, even with people who aren't Catholic, because it's the last place you can send your kid to get an old school education. And they just tell the kids, forget about the Jesus stuff. Just, to them, that's okay indoctrination, as opposed to some of the other indoctrination that goes on. And also, the Catholics don't put up with bullshit. They take your phone. You have to learn your P's and Q's and your grammar and all this kind of stuff. And that's what I just don't understand, that parents don't have the whip hand anymore. Not that you should actually use a whip.
When the insiders themselves start waving red flags, you know something's deeply wrong. And that, right there, is why Trump's support base continues to grow. Millions of Americans have stopped trusting legacy media and started searching for something more genuine, something unfiltered, something that can't be twisted by spin. Once respected news organizations, built to question power and uncover truth, now often sound like they're echoing party lines. Instead of holding leaders accountable, many seem more focused on protecting political narratives. It's a tough pill to swallow. Journalism, long seen as the backbone of democracy, feels increasingly like political theater, only with weaker scripts and clear bias. Every time a trusted media name gets caught pushing a slanted view, it isn't just a misstep. It's another reason for Americans to stop believing the press has their best interests at heart. For many, it confirms what they've suspected all along. The truth isn't found in headlines anymore. It's something you have to seek out yourself beyond the mainstream. This unraveling didn't happen overnight. It started when political leaders leaned into extreme cultural shifts, trading long-held values for divisive talking points. Suddenly, basic common sense was replaced by buzzwords. Parents, especially fathers, were sidelined in pop culture, often portrayed as clueless or outdated. Turn on a sitcom and you'll see it. Wisecracking teens, absent structure, and adults portrayed more like background noise.